this every week, huh?
Every other week.
Every other week. That's pretty fun. Wow.
All right, y'all.
All
We're
right.
from Texas. Just kidding.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Wild and Precious Optimal Living Show. I am your host, Dr. Sam.
And I am Dr. Lynn. And our show is, I want you to think about this. You have this one wild and precious life. So now is the time to take care of yourself. So on the show, we have candid conversations. Obviously, we have a great guest today. And we talk about increasing brain, emotional, and body resilience. But before we get started with the show, we want to be able to make a note and give a shout out to our sponsors.
Our sponsor, Shed Light Cold Lasers. So if you are still stuck in the model that you only need a pill, a potion, or a lotion to fix your ails, I want you to think about this is 2021. Laser therapy is the way of the future, and there's no better product out there than the Shed Light Cold Laser. There are thousands of preset settings on here, and laser therapy can do anything from turn down pain, it can increase energy, it can even make your brain work better, which is what we use it for in the office. And personally, for me, it's been a tremendous help with a lot of the gut issues that I've been having problems with. So if you're looking for a futuristic product, if you want to feel like you're living in the year 3000, then check out Shed Light Cold Lasers.
Awesome. And we want to just be able to give a shout out too. I know for those of you who might not know, but next week we are actually celebrating Lunar New Year's. It's actually on February. And this is a holiday that we celebrate at home. It's part of my culture. And we're super excited. If you're local in Colorado, there's going to be a link available for you to click on to actually be involved of a really amazing gift drive, gift basket drive. And this is put together by the Asian Pacific American Bar Association of Colorado and the Colorado Asian Culture and Education Network. I love being able to support these community organizations who are supporting refugees, who are supporting immigrants, who pandemic has made it really tough for so many families, and it's harder if everybody's in survival mode, and so especially harder with resources that they don't really necessarily have access to. So there's a really great drive that's running for the next 2 weeks, and we encourage you to participate, get involved, and it's an opportunity to be able to give back to the community. So the link will be available on our Facebook comments page to this video today. And so, moving forward, it's, this is really crazy. I've known Jason for, I don't know, we don't keep track, but I think almost.
How old are we now?
How old are we? I mean, 37. We went to college together. I'm 37 now, so.
Pushing 20 years?
Probably pushing 20 years. Wow,
yeah,
wow.
Time flies, right? Pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. So when I knew Jason, we were in college together. I remember the most things, speaking of Lunar New Year's, the biggest memory that I have of us was we would be participating in like the TET, the Vietnamese.
The VSA, the Student Association New Year's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Vietnamese Student Association, and he would be the one leading and also always performing all of the martial arts performance. And that was one major memory that stuck out in my mind. And Jason's always been just a really great friend, and I'm really grateful that we were able to have a little reunion, meet back up last year, and maintain that communication. And it's really cool to be able to see that you're also a health practitioner now too. It's actually years of martial arts, and now you're also an acupuncturist as well too.
Yeah, I got out of school in 2019 and just opened my practice recently. Which is unfamiliar to a lot of people, is that the martial arts and the acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine has a very long history together. A lot of folk heroes, if you guys are kung fu movie geeks, like Wong Fei Hung, probably the most famous practitioner martial artist out there. He was very renowned for being a doctor at the same time, fighting and trying to defend the rights for the Chinese people in the Guangdong area. His father was also one, and so yeah, they go hand in hand quite well. Yeah,
it really makes sense with it too, right? I mean, having a martial arts background, you have an understanding already of anatomy in a sense of how to use your body. So now it just makes more sense. Okay, well, I'm breaking people down. How can I build them back up?
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier in my career, my teacher was also a practitioner of acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine. When I was like 15, I was trying to connect the two. I kind of came to this silly realization that, well, if I'm really good, if I can hit this guy here and hurt him, I'm even better if I can hit them there and make them feel great. That's even more strength and awesomeness. So that's how my adolescent brain connected the bridge between martial arts and medicine there.
Right, makes complete sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very cool. So what specifically do you, what type of martial arts do you do?
So I did start when I was 12, started learning Taekwondo. I did that for about 3 years. At the age of about 15, I switched over to primarily Chinese martial arts, included various styles of Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Xingyi, and Bagua. And I did those for that was my primary practice for over 20 years, up until my adult age. Later on in life, I've been dabbling in, some kickboxing, boxing, kind of for some cardiovascular exercise. Also some jiu-jitsu. My wife really likes Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's very much her path, and we kind of like to learn it together and kind of just keep exploring things.
Well, that's awesome. And, I'm super excited to be able to have you on the show today, especially because I know that, we are familiar with what it's like to be in survival mode, like fighting for our business, fighting for a relationship. Perhaps for a lot of people, they may be going through rough patches and tough times as well, too. So there's that sense of constantly fighting. So it's going to be really fun to be able to have you, the topic of fighting without fighting. It comes from that ode to Bruce Lee's movie that we had talked about briefly yesterday too, where he has a part where.
Should I explain the scene?
Yeah, you could explain the scene. I watched it, rewatched it.
Did you rewatch it just to see what's
What was he talking about?
It's a pretty cool scene.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, he liked to put a lot of his philosophies in the movies. If you read his books, or like Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and kind of follow his interviews and stuff, he does like to put in kind of direct one-for-one translations of what he feels and thinks in his movies. This scene in particular, they're on the junk boat going to Han's Island to fight in the nefarious tournament there.
Real quick, which movie was it?
Enter the Dragon. Enter the Dragon. Very classic.
Yes.
Classic. Probably the quintessential Bruce Lee.
Probably the best known.
Right, best known. Absolutely best known. So they're on the junk boat going to the tournament, and there's a very cocky, arrogant martial artist. He's harassing the crew, and he's bullying people left and right. And he goes up to Bruce Lee and try to make some flinch. He's throwing some punches at his face. Bruce Lee just kind of shrugs him off and says, "Don't waste yourself. I'm not going to bother with you," is kind of what he's getting at. And the guy says, "What style do you do?" And Bruce replies, "Well, you could call it the art of fighting without fighting." The guy says, "Show me some." "Well, it's kind of tight here. Don't you think we should get some room? There's a beach over there. We can take this boat. Let's go over there." The guy says, "Okay, yeah, sure." So Bruce waits for the guy to get on the boat, and then unties the boat and lets him drift out halfway to sea. He holds on the rope and says, "If you keep struggling, I'm going to let go of this rope." And so completely dismantled the fight without even fighting. Total conflict resolution, being really quick on his feet and being calm. I guess that's a big lesson that you can take from that scene and from a lot of martial arts in general, is that being calm will help you stay agile in mind, stay agile in life, and not overextend yourself or even underextend yourself to not meet your challenges as well.
So how did you, was this an overnight, or this is like a natural learning that you gained, or a perspective that you gained, not just from watching Bruce Lee movie obviously, but from your own personal experience with martial arts? How did you gain that insight for yourself too?
Like martial art lessons and such?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that when you first asked me.
Yeah.
You roll through life and you kind of pick things up. If you're really paying attention all the time, they're kind of always there, those lessons. The ones that can really come to mind at the forefront were actually, when I was 19, I was actually a bouncer at a nightclub. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Didn't we work in the same club?
Did I get you a job there? I think I did. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I think you were a cashier for a few months. Yeah.
Yes, at the Bash.
At the Bash, that's right. The Bash in Denver, now closed down, unfortunately. It's now the Summit Music Hall.
Oh, yeah.
But I think before you joined on, I was probably a little frighter. Yeah, I was a 19-year-old kid, kind of, when you're 19, a young male, you want to kind of establish who you are. You want to become that man. You want to become, as a woman, of course, you want to be a woman and become that grown-up person. So the nightclub was interesting because it was kind of conflict resolution all the time.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by a lot of machismo. All the other bouncers are big, burly dudes, work out a lot. They like the physicality. They like physically throwing people out. I was a door guy, so I did more of the talking side of things. And my boss told me, he's like, dude, you're in front. You're not supposed to be punching and kicking people in the street. One, you're gonna get arrested. Two, it looks horrible for the club. Nobody wants to show up for a good time and go to a boxing match, that they're a part of. So that was a big initial part of it, was just learning how to talk to people who are in an upsetting situation and trying to help them calm down, or kind of navigate through what they're feeling with right now, and both you kind of come out to a positive end. That was a lot of good training initially as a kid.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. And so, so you immediately were able to just take that through your own personal, I guess, as a kid growing up. When did you start martial arts, actually?
So like I said, I started when I was 12.
12.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons along the way.
Yeah.
You kind of just connect people. It's funny how how do you connect martial arts to your daily life? As a 12-year-old kid, it started off as like physical movement. Like I love Jackie Chan. Still love Bruce Lee movies. I would try to turn the light switch on with my toe, right? So this physical movement, I'm trying to adapt one for one these physical movements I've learned in class to various situations in life. And my poor mother's like, why is there a footprint on the wall? Yeah, that's me trying to teach myself something. Later on in life, along with the nightclub experiences, various other older martial art brothers who kind of became mentors. They taught me a lot about humbleness, about looking at yourself, about kind of quelling the ego to really see what's around you. Really helped me kind of come to certain conclusions that helped me navigate through life.
Yeah. What are some steps that now are you able to break it down and see, consciously kind of walk through in terms of navigating through those challenges or conflicts? Are you able to break down specific steps you think that maybe our listeners would be able to benefit from?
Yeah, sure. Definitely the one I took most liking to in the very early, they say in martial arts, a good quote is, if you know yourself, you'll know your opponent. In 1,000 battles, will that lead to 1,000 victories? So knowing yourself is key in this sense. So I would have to say patterns is the key word. In martial arts, you learn patterns. Sometimes they call them forms. Sometimes they're pattern drills on pads and such. But you kind of want to look at your own patterns in life. Like if you're feeling stuck, I had my moments where I felt stuck. I'm kind of spinning my wheels. I find myself in the same situations all the time. Quiet your mind, take a step back, really look at your patterns. What are you doing that's kind of the same all the time, right? Like I always get angry at this situation. I always tend to attract these type of people. I always, kind of give up at this moment when I'm trying to pursue something. And when you see those patterns, it kind of gives you a framework of what to work on. Now you have a roadmap of, okay, this part of my anger, my emotions, I got to work on that, right? This part I give up too often. I should really push through that. I saw this 3 times before, the last 3 things I tried to accomplish, and I'm not getting anywhere with it. Now this time, let me try to go a little bit further. Let me try to push through this ceiling that I can kind of see now. That was a very big one.
That's awesome. Do you feel like, you're an acupuncturist now, so did you find yourself kind of being able to, this journey of that and pushing through and realizing that this acupuncture, the career of practicing traditional Chinese medicine and continuing to further your education was part of that realization too?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the desire to be an acupuncturist when I was 16. I saw my teacher do it. I was really enamored with it. He kind of blew my mind though, because you have this image of your teacher. That's what he does. His name is Richard Ho, by the way. Yeah, he'll end up listening to this later. Him and his wife Gretchen Ho are the ones who taught me out in North Glen, Colorado here. And he's a very practical guy, very pragmatic, likes to stay very active. So I have this view of my teacher, right? That's what you do every day. You teach Kung Fu, you do acupuncture. In my head, that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. But I tell him this, I'm like, I'd like to be an acupuncturist one day. And he goes, yeah, you really got to see if you want to be doing this for the next 10 years. I don't even know if I want to be doing this for the next 10 years. Mind blown. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to do this for the next 10 years? But that, if I look back, that actually kind of shifted the whole perspective. And I would say it elongated my path. So I kind of put that idea on the shelf for a long time. And I guess you could argue that I went back to kind of applying these martial arts ideas through various times in my life. And I went through different phases where I went through college. I got out of college, I ended up joining the Army. Got out of the Army, was trying to figure out what to do. And I'd have to say that all these life experiences and kind of overcoming different difficulties, overcoming hardships, kind of prepared me with enough life experience to now help my patients. If I did this when I was younger, honestly, I don't know how much I could help people just because I was so young in life. My mindset was so young in life. So I couldn't really relate, or I couldn't understand where you're coming from, or I wouldn't have, I guess some grounding to help another person.
Wow.
What was the ultimate shift that took you to finally say, look, I want to be an acupuncturist, I'm going to go for it and do this?
So that is a very serious question, but I'm not going to lie, it's not a very serious answer. Well, let's make it a longer answer, I suppose. My teacher always told me to practice martial arts without practicing medicine is to not practice at all. I still think about that in my daily practice, and I don't want to discredit any martial artist. If you're not an acupuncturist, doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, right? And if you're a practitioner of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, if you're not going out doing kung fu forms every day, you're not wrong either. Okay, it's not about that one-to-one per se. But as a practitioner, UFC fighters have some of the healthiest diets out there. You learn about stretching and just staying general good cardiovascular health. That's enough of the medicine to give you a long, lasting life. And as a practitioner, same thing. Just a little bit of qigong every day. You dabble in qi every day. You have to get in that meditative space to treat people. That itself will also benefit your own personal health as a practitioner. So that mindset was always there. So throughout the years, I would at least try to learn some basic massage, learn some basic ways to help people. Maybe crack a bone here or there. Stretch things out for people. Safely crack a bone, I should caveat that with.
You're sitting between two.
I know, right? Yeah, they're like, I've heard this before. I've fixed that before too. But anyway, back to your question, Dr. Sam. After the Army, my poor wife had a light knee sprain, and I was trying to massage it, and I guess I wasn't doing a very good job. But she kind of looks up at me and goes, "Would you go get your damn acupuncture degree?" And that was the sign. It was like, okay, we're starting school now. And that was the physical shift. I mean, it's always been there, but that was the last little nudge to get me to school.
There's always one final piece where you keep circling the drain for a while, saying, that might be a good idea. That might be a good idea. Until finally something clicks into place.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I guess it probably means a lot more too when your wife, you wanted to help your wife.
Right.
And you felt like basically her message was like, you're not doing a good job right now.
I asked her about that. She's like, that's not what I meant. Don't make me sound like a jerk. No, bless her heart.
Gina, you're listening.
Bless her heart. No, she knows what's in my heart. She knew this was something important to me for a long time. And she's very good at, now it's time, go do it. So I think that was her main motivation was, it's time, go do it, so.
Yeah.
It was with 100% good intentions. She told me that.
Yeah. Now, how many years have you guys been married?
That put me on the spot again.
Oh, sure.
The first time you told me I gave you the wrong date, she's like, dude, it's this. So we've been married since 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I imagine that you guys have gone through some ups and downs together.
Yes.
And, since we're speaking of wife, I mean, as husband and wife team ourselves, and for our listeners too out there, whether you're married or not, significant others, partners, whatever it looks like, how have you, started taking martial arts and starting to apply some of the principles behind that, like that, being able to create resolution of conflicts? Because sometimes I know with Sam, it could be so reactive, and it could just go up and beyond, right, and spin out of control. Right. So what does that look like with you and Gina? We can just kind of peel open the covers of it.
Yeah, we fix everything with boxing matches. No, I'm totally joking. Totally joking.
We've had that idea before.
That's a lot of the kids we teach that know we both do martial arts. That's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't do that. It doesn't go that way. We both know if that happened, we probably wouldn't have a roof to live under. The house would probably be destroyed. No, it's gotten to the point where both of us, we just step back and have a lot of patience with each other.
Mm-hmm.
The initial, there's always a big learning curve when you're in a relationship. We had a long stint of long distance relationship while I was in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Bless her heart for sticking with me through all that.
Mm-hmm.
But through all those years, what you get really good at is just being quiet for a sec and really listening to what the person has to say. In the sense of martial arts, when you're first learning how to fight somebody, they're punching at you, they're kicking at you, you freak out, you tense up, you spaz, you kind of do these spazzy motions that we as teachers we see young students do. And that can be related to an argument, right? Somebody says something, they're expressing how they feel. They might be trying to attack you, they might not. A lot of times they're not, but you do feel attacked. And from that, you have a knee-jerk reaction. You kind of, what we call spazzing out, like I said. That may manifest in saying some harsh things you didn't mean to say. Saying some things you can't really take back. You didn't really mean to go that far. Maybe it was a low blow to the other person, since you kind of know them so intimately. We've gotten really good at just taking a step back and thinking, what is going on with my partner? They're tired. They've been working 80 hours this week. What they're saying isn't meant to hurt you. Just step back and give them some space for a sec. Really listen to what they're trying to say. And then don't take offense to it, but try to use it productively. Flip it around and see how you can help them at the moment. And maybe they'll help you later. And so we've gotten really good at kind of de-escalating things that way.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can add to that, for me personally, recently too, it's just like asking the question, what can I let go of right now that I'm hearing myself say that it's not helping the situation right now? There's something I can let go. It comes from my tarot cards. I've been pulling out cards, and it says, I keep pulling out the tarot card, let go, let go. I'm like, there must be something to it. So the message that I'm learning, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What can I let go of this moment and just step back and maybe shut up.
And if words can't solve the argument, just put them in a boat. And let them float away.
What is this?
That's a throwback to the Bruce Lee.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
We're volunteer in Colorado. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
Totally went over my head on that. Nice, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
So that's the other option in conflict resolution, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
Just do that.
Yeah.
So cool. So what type of patients are you seeing then right now, or do you call them patients? We call our clients practice members, but every practitioner has something different.
I'd say, before we ask that question, there might
yeah.
be, most likely not, but for people that maybe don't know much about acupuncture, they probably have some
yes.
preconceived notions of what it is. Oh, it's you're sticking needles in people. Like, why are you doing that? So can you give people some background first? What is acupuncture? What's the goal of it? What are you trying to do?
We bring
Right.
it back.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, exactly. A lot of different definitions of acupuncture, obviously. My own personal interpretation, it would be the use of needles to stimulate an energetic network known as a chi system or meridian flows to promote a healthy flow between all the energetic meridians, which then results in the body kind of healing itself. That's really what you're trying to do with acupuncture. It's not so much heal the person like one-to-one, like I am healing you.
Right.
I'm more so tricking your body into healing itself by stimulating good chi flow, stimulating the natural healing responses from your body.
Yeah,
If that helps.
Absolutely, and it's like we've discussed a lot of people. Chiropractic has a similar lens where it's, I wouldn't say tricking is really the right word for it. It's you're accessing the body's innate healing capabilities.
Yeah,
because
very
there's,
similar,
there's
yes.
this understanding the body can heal itself. You cut your arm, you don't have to tell your arm to heal. You don't have to put a Band-Aid on it to make it heal. It will do it on its own. It's just there can be obstructions to that.
Yeah.
And in the acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine system, it's the meridian system.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny you use the word obstruction because that also is a very predominant idea in Chinese medicine. Call it stagnation is another word for it. The old adage is where there is pain, there is stagnation, and when there is stagnation, there is pain. And so the goal of the needles and to pick the certain points is to promote the healthiest flow you can of the energy flow throughout the body to relieve pain and break up that stagnation. Yeah, it can be also equated to everyday life. Like we do feel stagnant in things we do, and so that I guess we're gonna go on the caveat there. Go ahead.
Oh no, nothing. I was like, oh, we go deeper.
Yeah, we're going deeper. Right down the rabbit hole we go.
Stagnation in life too.
But yeah, this is getting into the kind of the emotional, mental health of Chinese medicine as well. People don't realize this, but a lot of the medicine, a good amount of it, came from the emperor, the Chinese emperor. You can imagine what it's like ruling the country, especially an emperor who wants to be a good emperor, a benevolent person. How much stress they have trying to worry about, the millions of citizens they have to feed, all the economic issues and so on and so forth, making sure everyone's happy and fed and all that. So that came about a ton of stress, a ton of, constantly thinking with your mind. And so a very large portion of the medicine is actually for that stress, to calm the mind down, help you sleep at night, promote your health, because without that good health, you're not going to be able to do your job well. And so, yeah, that's where a lot of the insomnia treatments come in. PTSD also has a lot of relationships to this, kind of calming the spirit and promoting the well health of a person so that they can pursue what they want to pursue. Yeah.
Absolutely. Health is wealth, as we say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so explain a little bit about traditional Chinese medicine then. Because acupuncture is a branch of that, correct?
Yeah, it's much easier in the West. It's quicker to say acupuncture too. So there is the overall umbrella of traditional Chinese medicine that tends to encompass acupuncture, herbal medicine, some of the other modalities that are becoming more popular, such as cupping. Thank you, Michael Phelps. Yeah, cupping is very popular now. It's very helpful too. Moxibustion, which a lot of people know less about. Sometimes you see it in shows. Most often lately, I've seen it as a pregnant person is lighting this cigar-looking thing that's real smoky to help turn a fetus or promote labor. That actually is a real thing. There are protocols to help in Chinese medicine to help rotate a fetus with moxa. But moxa is also really great for bruises and sprains and injuries. Martial artists would use that a lot to fix themselves. And then the other last part, which is most common, is what's called tuina, Chinese-style massage, which is kind of different from Swedish massage and like kind of deep tissue. There's different hand techniques. Different. Also, it does stimulate the energy networks and the meridians and the pathways as well. And I think legally I have to call it bone cracking, which I didn't learn, but it's a part of tuina as well.
Wow.
There might probably some crossover with the chiropractic work, of course.
Potentially. It definitely would be much older than the chiropractic profession.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people are cracking bones since there were bones. So.
I think so. Since they were setting them back in the caveman.
Bone
days,
centers
sure.
is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
because
probably
original.
something very similar to that, yeah.
So they're not the same, bone centers and bone cracking.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so I'm not sure the
I'm not
terminology.
sure.
I'll learn
I
that
was just
myself.
asking you. Okay.
Potentially could have been both. I mean,
Yeah,
back then,
exactly.
yeah, you need to be able to set something. So,
Yeah.
what kind of clients do you like to see? I mean, you've got a pretty diverse background with the military and with martial arts. I mean,
Currently, I'm seeing just a lot of people actually doing, now that I think about it, doing a lot of shift work. With my own life, I've done a lot of shift work myself. So I'm seeing a lot of people who have physical jobs. They're on their feet all day. Plantar fasciitis is a common issue that comes in, as well as shoulder injuries, back injuries. I'm on my feet all day pulling these big bags, or I'm pulling these big crates, or I'm sitting at a desk and my shoulders are shrugging, and I have all this neck tension. So I have a lot of those patients. But at the same time, those late nights, those midnight shifts and those graveyard shifts really start to deplete a person's vitality. Yep, and so I try to help people with that, get you back to having some good sleep, have some good digestion issues, and make sure you're feeling your best.
Yeah. So what do you feel like, because they're doing shift work, I would imagine, what's their lifestyle like coming in like? And you mentioned because it comes from the mind. So what are you noticing perhaps the pattern is that may lead them to some of these symptoms that they're seeing?
So this is a classic pattern in Chinese medicine. You're going to get a dissertation now.
Oh, okay.
We went down this rabbit hole now. But in Chinese medicine and in culture, really, the concept of yin and yang comes in very apparently during this person's life, this person's pattern. Yang being the daytime energy, the gusto for life, the hot fire energy, and yin being the softer, cooler times, the healing side of life, and the more fluid and contrasting to the yang. They go hand in hand. With yang ignites yin and causes it to move. Yin is the source for yang to become hot and fire, if that makes sense. So a lot of these people that work night shifts, have what we call a yin deficiency. So their nice healthy fluids start to get dried up. The quality of blood, their blood is the energetic concept of blood in Chinese medicine is very closely related to yin. It's an expression of the yin energies, and so some people describe it as they feel stale. So that's kind of what's happening. Their blood is becoming stale. It's not getting a chance to refresh itself. And so after years and years and years of this, you just feel kind of dry. And after the yin dries up, the yang doesn't have anything to ignite itself, and so you're kind of losing out on both ends at that point. You know, the candle's burning on two ends at that point.
Yeah, and very much analogous to, we talk a lot with people about the nervous system function, and you have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, so the rest, digest, and healing part of it, and the fight or flight. And same thing we've seen with chronic, either any kind of chronic issue, whether it's chronic anxiety, chronic depression, chronic adrenal fatigue, any of those things. Yeah, you have that burnout of, one, the relaxation system isn't engaging. So in the sympathetic system's in overdrive until that collapses. And then you have a person that's coming in, he said stale's a great word, they're dried up like a dried leaf.
Right. To relate it back to what you're saying, Doc Sam, with kind of a more tangible issue that you can see is you can't get back to sleep when you want to sleep. Yin and good blood is a source for your spirit to rest in Chinese medicine. So once that dries up, you're just having poor sleep. The mind is based off of what they call clear yang energy. So without the yin to ignite the yang energy, you have foggy mind, you're kind of forgetful, you're lethargic and dull in thought. That's a part of it too. It's funny you bring up adrenal fatigue, kind of a crossover. The kidneys, the energetic side of the kidneys are the source of yin and yang. That's your life gate is what we call it. Mingmen fire, that's where your energy and your gusto, that's the origin of your own personal yin and yang. And so, yeah, if you're taxing that all the time, like I said, adrenal fatigue, you do start actually manifesting those kidney issues, frequent urination, sometimes kidney stones, sometimes nephritis, some things like that, if it gets to that, excessive level of sickness.
Right. Well, that's what chronic disease is. It's just acute disease compounded over time until something finally breaks.
Yeah.
So I've got another rabbit hole for you, because
Sure.
this has come up a couple times in practice where people will talk about, it's every day I experience the same thing at the same time. 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm always waking up with XYZ, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm just exhausted. And someone introduced this concept to me, the horary clock, from acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
Okay. I was going to ask you if you learned about that before.
No.
Can you repeat that? What type of clock?
The horary clock, if I'm saying that right.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So could you discuss a little bit that? Because I've just learned this secondhand from somebody else. I would love to hear from an actual person trained in it.
Yeah, that's actually a huge diagnosis tool for us. The theory is that the energy in your body moves through the body at certain specific times to match daily functions. This is going to tie into the graveyard shift as well in a sec here. So for examples, from 7 to 9 a.m., you can look up this clock on Google. It kind of has a map out of all the organ systems that Chinese medicine deals with and what time they're most active. So you see a lot of crossover in the sense that, for example, 7 to 9 is when the large intestine is most active. A lot of people need to take that first morning bowel, right? There's a reason for that. It's because your body's getting rid of what it dealt with yesterday and prepping you for the new day. So it's making space for that nice healthy breakfast you're going to eat, right? What we've noticed most in my practice is if you talk to a lot of traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, acupuncture practitioners, especially in the United States, we're all kind of crazy about the liver. The liver, what we call the liver in Chinese medicine, it's the general of your energy. It is the one in charge of directing everything. It is the one that makes sure energy goes to where it's supposed to go. And it makes sure everything's regulated. That's its big job, it's the big regulator. Now, it is highly susceptible to stress and mental difficulties and emotional stress, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the liver when it gets stressed out? It doesn't relax and kind of cry in the corner. It becomes a bully. It gets angry and it beats up on all these other organs. I mean, that's actually how we explain having an upset stomach when you are upset yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The liver will kind of attack the spleen stomach system. But back to your clock question, a lot of people, Doc, I always wake up from 1 to 3. Well, that's liver time.
Yeah.
That's actually the time the liver is most active, and your blood needs to return to your liver to get that refreshing feeling we were talking about, to get that new cleanly yin feel, and then when after 3 o'clock it flows out to the body and you start to wake up and such.
Yeah.
So it's a big diagnostic tool for me. If you come in with insomnia and you say, I always wake up at 2 o'clock, liver.
Yep.
You know, and so, yeah, we're pretty nuts about that.
It leads to interesting questions, especially when that
absolutely.
comes up, and I'll ask, Sean, what they mention the time, I'll have to look it up because I don't have it memorized.
Yeah.
Do you have any liver problems? Yeah, actually I do. And they start naming all things. Oh, okay, well, you need to go see an acupuncturist because this needs to be cleared out. And talk to them about that. We can laser your liver and do some other things, but you need to go get that looked at too because the nervous system's probably clogged.
Well, so I want to be able to explore this. Obviously, Sam loves the clinical aspects and the physical aspects. How does the liver, and you mentioned kidney earlier as well too, but I've dabbled a little bit with acupuncture, meridian points, acupressure points, and just understanding that there actually are associated emotions behind this too.
Yes.
And that, so when we talk about energy, it's not just cells generating energy to move action, but there's also an emotional component. There's even deeper spiritual components to the energy too. So obviously, for me, I love to talk about the emotional side.
We're not just a battery. We're a battery with feelings.
Feelings. Oh, he's waiting for that. I saw that smile. He's going to just say it right there. So I just want to understand. So because we bring it to kidneys, we talked about kidneys and livers. What are some emotions that maybe some people are struggling that you see too, on top of those some physical symptoms that you may be seeing, that, hey, it can relate to, really tough times, survival times, right? So what does that look like?
Well, you're taking me back to TCM 101 here. No, this is a very big part of what's called 5-element theory.
Yeah.
I am not a 5-element acupuncturist. If that needs clarification, there's actually a difference in styles of acupuncture.
Oh, okay.
Traditional Chinese medicine, to a quick rundown, it's actually ironic they call it traditional because it's very communist. Kind of what happened was, a quick history, Mao thinks that it's great to get rid of, Mao Zedong, Communist leader of China, right? Thinks it's great to get rid of all things traditional, including traditional medicine. But after he did that, the people of China started getting sick. So he goes, oh, okay, we're going to bring that back because it has a lot of good tools that we can get out to villages quickly and help people. So he got an assembly of all the most famous families in China that did medicine, and they kind of put together the most common threads and the things that they would think would be most efficacious, most efficient. That is what we call traditional Chinese medicine nowadays. I find it ironic because if I actually was traditional Chinese medicine, I'd probably be sitting in the clinic room with Taoist robes and talismans, trying to unite your chi with the heavenly chi. That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
Now, 5-element acupuncturists, they're going to allude to much more what you're talking about, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
They focus a lot on the emotions that are associated with organ dysfunction, and a lot of the emotions that are associated with the organs themselves. To try and answer your question, the best of my basic knowledge, we have 5 main organs in Chinese medicine: the lungs, the spleen, the liver, the kidneys, and the heart. Each one of those organs has an associated emotion. Now, what tends to happen is that it's not that the emotion is expressed from that organ, but an excess of that emotion will cause dysfunction in that organ.
Okay.
So for the happiness is the emotion of the heart. Now, that sounds great. Who doesn't need more happiness, right? That, of course you want to be happy. Excessive happiness can be what we call mania.
Okay.
Right? You're constantly on level 10, your dials turned up all the time. That's really going to tax your heart. You can imagine if it's alluded to some modern problems. If you're on cocaine all the time, you're happy all the time with a pharmaceutical, your heart's going to give out. It's going to have a heart attack. It's going to have a lot of issues like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the most common one we see, back to the emotions, is stress.
Mm-hmm.
Some about this modern day life with all the technology that's thrown at you all the time, all the constant information.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't have as many quiet moments as a farmer does, back in 15th century China. So stress gets to that liver all the time, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So help. You want more emotions?
Oh, well, I'm just curious, like how are you providing advice and strategies then outside of acupuncture for your clients too, then to support perhaps their lifestyle that may be continually, like they get acupuncture session, do they go and do the same thing and then it keeps staying provoked, or are you providing different strategies and obviously tying in, just it sounds like as you're studying acupuncture as well too, or Chinese medicine, there's this realization too that there's a blend of philosophy behind martial arts, and then there's a blend of what you do as a practitioner, as a
Right.
acupuncturist, that it all applies, then you can apply it back to life as well too.
Right.
So how are you sharing these, like what are some tips and strategies you're providing for your clients as you're, understanding and seeing more of this?
Yeah, absolutely. A beautiful part of the medicine, which I'm sure you guys, as chiropractors, can experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know about you. I need to know about my patients to diagnose, because as we've mentioned, emotions and mental well-being are so interconnected to the health of the body.
Mm-hmm.
I have to spend time asking you about your family, asking you about your relationships, your job, where you are in life, how's your money situation, what's stressing you out, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is some type of life coaching. It's not like a mechanic. I can't just throw some needles in, twist them with a wrench and send you on your way and you'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
During the sessions, I try to give people some strategies.
Mm-hmm.
A good thing is communication. You have to really communicate with your patients. My teacher kind of pointed this out to me. If you have an overweight patient, they know they're overweight, right? I mean, every Western doctor has told them, you're overweight, you gotta lose weight, you gotta lose weight. Great, thank you, I know this. How? So that's where I like to apply, any advice I have, maybe some experiences from martial arts. How am I gonna lose weight? How do I get out of this rut of feeling stuck? How do I feel, or what kind of tools can I have to help improve my health? That comes in various forms. I tend to be a little more direct than some practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of yin and yang, sometimes I tell people, a lot of times the yin side, the meditative side, absolutely helps all the time. But sometimes I do tell people, you got to get some gusto. You got to get off your seat and really pursue that dream. Don't be scared of taking that next step. It sounds like you're worried about taking this job. Maybe this, and this will happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're in a position where you need a job. Take the job. Take it one step at a time. Don't snowball yourself into other problems yet. Just fix it one problem at a time, and that's where that resiliency comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that groundingness. Be grounded to just fix one problem at a time,
Mm-hmm.
right? If just walk home, go home, fix one today. Next time I see you, we'll fix another one, and over time, we'll help you try to find your best way of living.
Absolutely. I think what you're pointing to is just realizing and helping people understand that, when we look at symptoms and we're looking at our mindset, or you might not necessarily be feeling symptoms, but there may be symptoms in life, not just physically, that you're experiencing, but you're having to look at the interconnection behind it and having a conversation piece. And I think my personal experience in adding to what you're saying too is, I think it's also encouraging clients, encouraging patients to ask themselves and to stop their own stop their own patterns by asking a question that they normally don't ask themselves. Like, you mentioned person who's overweight, right? It's just, what is keeping you from losing weight? So what is it that you're afraid of? What is it that you don't feel like right now what is it that you feel like you have to hang on to in a current situation that it's not necessary for you to put more energy into it, or what is it that you feel like you're hiding or avoiding right now? So I think it's always striking creativity
Yep.
in people lives by just suggesting things that they might not necessarily think about.
Right.
And I think that that's important in shifting some of their patterns.
Right.
So I love having conversations like that with practice members in
Absolutely,
the office.
yeah.
So you know, working with so many people, how can you tell our listeners what they can best do for their health? Like they might not necessarily be able to get to you or an acupuncturist right away. So what do you see from all your experience so far? It's just like that. Like you've mentioned your gurus, your teachers say this. What would teacher Jason say?
Yeah, no. You know, of all the health stuff I've done, different workouts, training programs, diets, and all this. You know what I would find the thing that helps longevity the most is stretching. Surprised or not. Yeah, qigong is great. Tai chi is great. They're kind of time consuming to learn, and Tai Chi is interesting. It's kind of like golf. It's not really relaxing until you get good at it. So I've seen some people beat their heads over not being able to do this form in the Tai Chi as well as they wanted. So if you have time to do that, that's great. But to answer Lynn's question, Dr. Lynn's question, stretch. Stretching helps everything. It helps the muscles, helps the joints, helps your vascular system. You're going to stretch out your veins and get some good blood flow. Helps those nagging pains. You know, a lot of time I've had this back pain for 10 years. Yeah, touch your toes every day. At least try to touch your toes every day, right? Just reach for your toes a little bit every day, and it just helps your mood, your breathing, your everything. Your cells just get a nice happy boost of flowing energy as well as blood and nutrients and all those other nice things. So yeah, that is going to be, of all the things I've learned, that is the biggest thing towards longevity, is just stretching.
Can I add that?
Sure.
Can Teacher Lynn add something?
Yeah, please do.
I'd like to say on top of stretching though, you have to add in breath.
Yes.
Breath is important because it's that personal connection where Sam talked about earlier too, between the fight flight state and the rest digest and heal state. But stretching, while you're stretching, it's like, and there's the yoga side of me that's saying, you know, the breath is really helping you become more aware of the present moment as well too, and increase circulation as well too.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe I took it for granted. Yeah, absolutely. Stretching is probably the most meditative thing a person can do. It kind of hurts, so that's another element to it. If you want to push your limits, you kind of breathe through that difficulty, and it kind of adds to that drive and will to push through difficult situations. But yeah, definitely reach for your toes and count to 10. Take 10 deep breaths. You're absolutely right. Yeah, breathing during stretching is absolutely key.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. What's your favorite stretch move?
Ooh. You know, I really like this one. I teach people. It's a variation of just touching toes. So if you're standing upright, you make sure your knees aren't bent, and you just reach as far as you can for your toes. Don't force it. Don't try to pull a muscle. Just kind of let your body hang. While it's hanging there, you move your hands in semicircles, kind of around your legs or your feet, kind of just back and forth, maybe 8 to 10 times or so. And then right after that, do a squatting position with your knees together, kind of like you're sitting in a chair without the chair. You want to keep your back flat. You want to have your hands on your knees for support. And you actually hold that position for about 10 seconds, and then reach for your toes again. You go back and forth like this for about 3 to 4 times, maybe up to 5 times if you have the time of the day. And you actually gain like 2 inches of stretching instantly.
Yeah.
And then people are like, "What'd you do to me?" I didn't do it. You did it. I didn't do anything, but that's how your body reacts. The squatting really helps warm up the muscles again, get some blood flow back in there, so when you stretch again, they're ready to go a little farther each time. Yeah, I really like that one.
Awesome. Very cool. I mean, we're going to do it right after this too, right?
Yeah. After sitting for an hour, touch toes.
It's a good one to do. Awesome. You know, you mentioned briefly, like, you know, just the mechanics of Tai Chi. It reminded me of a book by Josh Waitzkin. Sam, do you remember that book, The Art of Learning? And you ever heard of this book?
No.
You're going to have to read it.
Yeah.
Josh Waitzkin, he talks about the art of learning, and he's really big on a specific Tai Chi style.
The fighting form of Tai Chi, whatever. it's
Chun,
called.
Chun style Tai Chi.
Yeah, there's
Sounds
like
like it is.
Something like that.
two hand or four. Okay, sorry, I'm botching it. Don't. But great book of the learning.
Maybe two-hand push hands?
Two-hand push hands.
Two-handed push hands,
Okay,
yes.
yes. So that was the style. So in this book, he talks about initially the mechanics, and it's frustrating, and you're very conscious about it. And there's maybe the side of us, of our natural reactions in everyday life, we react. It's unconsciously like, oh, this is pissing me off, and it's making me frustrated. But then he talks about actually, as you start to learn the biomechanics and the parts and pieces, and you start to piece the big picture together and learn to flow, there's this beautiful ease that actually happens in being aware of the movements itself in the process and seeing the dance of it. And I think it makes me think back on just our talk too about fighting without fighting, is you being somehow in this process of getting into something, you're being in the movement of it and seeing the orchestration and so do you see that too with, you know, is that an experience that you have with martial arts and even with acupuncture and working with your clients and finding that ease as you're working with people and just being present in that, and what does that look like for you?
Are you talking about actually in clinic or like
Yeah, in
life
clinic or
advice
just
stuff?
life?
Oh, well, yeah,
yeah,
both, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely so in clinic. Is a very big part of quieting your mind. In our own education and what teachers have warned us about is you have to watch out for your own ego. You don't want to inflict your will on the patient, especially too aggressively. What that manifests to is you accept small victories. I have a lot of patients with some long-standing pain, long-standing issues. For example, I treated one today. He's been having dizziness from 2008. You know, it stopped him from doing things he loves. He used to fly planes. He can't do that anymore. And so I've been treating him, and it's scary, and it's almost kind of frustrating that, you know, when I talk to him, like, is the dizziness getting better? No, not really. It's still the same. It pops up randomly. The duration's the same, and the intensity's the same. I'm like, oh, okay, that's disheartening for me. But then I asked him, he was like, okay, so what else are you feeling? He's like, the herbs you're giving me are great. I have more energy. I feel, you know, my internals feel great. I have more motivation. So that's a small victory, right? That shows me that the body is reacting to what we're doing. He is getting benefit. He's happy coming in, and I'm honored for that. And the dizziness will come. So this kind of makes me think of to the life advice side, Olympic champs. Have you ever thought about this? So if you talk to an Olympic champion, right? And I've read this in a lot of sports mental strategy books and such. You got a champion. Let's say they're a downhill ski jumper. Right? The goal is to get that gold medal and pull off this awesome downhill ski jump. Now, in daily training, they don't think about that end goal. They don't think about that awesome ski jump. I got to get this awesome ski jump. No, they think, today I'm moving my foot this much over. Tomorrow I'm going to put my hand this much cleaner. Next day I'm going to do this part that much cleaner. So they break up their big event into tiny, small ones. And every day they just improve those little ones every time. And then they achieve their goal. And so that can be related back to your life, right? People get overwhelmed like, I need a house. That's a huge thing. I need to buy a house. Very, very large goal. Very, very large and difficult situation to be in sometimes, especially when you're in a time crunch, right? Don't get overwhelmed by that end goal. Think about the small parts that will lead you to that goal, right? I gotta have better spending habits. Cool, let's fix those spending habits first. Once you get those spending habits down, okay, I gotta find other sources of income, maybe some side money. Okay, let's work on that. And you just break it down into little pieces every day. Don't get scared by the whole. Yeah.
So one of the biggest takeaways that I'm hearing from our conversation today is, it sounds like, you know, when we are going through times of conflict or tough times of survival, what really helps, and it may be hard for us when we're so fixated on what's in front of us and hard, and that attachment to it is important to pause. It is important to take a break and start to ask ourselves questions about what's checking in with our patterns that you had talked about, right? And at the same time, shifting our mindset by, rather than focusing on what's not working out, by focusing on the little victories. And I think those are really great strategies that it's a great reminder for me to take away from today. And so, awesome. Well, is there, what are some last words you want to be able to say? We're coming towards the tail end of our show here, and anything else, any other thoughts that you want to be able to leave for our audience before we wrap things up?
Now I'm scared we're going to go down another rabbit hole. I guess this could be another show.
Words of wisdom for
Yeah, words of wisdom.
teacher adjacent.
You know what, with the martial arts, I would say one of the biggest things in martial arts gave me was the strength to take a good, hard, long look at yourself. That's very hard. We take it for granted. Like, really look at who you are. Really look at who you want to be. Really look at the parts you don't like about yourself and improve upon them. That was a huge, huge turning point for me as a young man doing martial arts. Once I kind of humbled myself to see that, I really was inspired to try and become the best person of myself, the best version of myself. And once that happens, you start to just take better steps for yourself.
Yeah. And so, my question is, how do you do that, right? And I think that's a big part of
In 2 minutes. How do you become the best version of yourself?
But just to give some tips right away for our listeners, and I can relate with you what you're saying, and you guys feel free to add in, but I think the first way to do it is just start asking yourselves questions. For me, a strategy that's really helped me is journaling. It's just a way to reflect, even if it was a crappy day, just writing it out, but then maybe practicing how I can shift my mindset behind it and ask myself, well, how can I take responsibility of this rather than the world's out and against me? It's like, how can I take responsibility about something that feels like it's out of control right now?
Absolutely.
So just want to throw that out there. Anything else that you guys want to add into that, guys?
I think a lot of people really get upset and angry and emotional about their life or a certain